let's go ahead and dive in to the next topic of the show, and that is the Big 12 makes a huge basketball deal. This was a press release from the Big 12 that came out earlier today, and here's what it had to say. Players Era, an Ever Wonder studio company, and the Big 12 Conference announced a first-of-its-kind partnership that will grant the Big 12 an equity stake in the marquee Players Era Men's Championship Tournament. Now, I'm going to pause there, and for those of you who don't know, Players Era is what they call an MTE. It's one of these in-season tournaments like West Virginia just played in the Charleston Classic. We've heard of the Maui Invitational. All these MTEs that happen. This is a new one called Players Era, and it's done in Las Vegas. Well, this is one that actually pays money to the teams that participate and the athletes, is my understanding, who participate in it. So this is a big deal. And as we go through this, you'll see why this is such a big deal for the Big 12. For financial reasons, and B, for exposure. This is going to give the Big 12 and their teams a ton of exposure, because this tournament could end up being a very, very big tournament. It could end up being the biggest MTE out there, because it's getting ready to expand to 32 teams. But it goes on to say, as part of the landmark partnership, the Big 12, which has established itself as a top conference in men's basketball over the years, and again, this is a Big 12 press release, so obviously they're a little biased, right? But I happen to agree with that. At least it may not have been last year, but the previous several years they were, in my opinion. Anyway, it goes on and says, Big 12 will see the top 8 teams in the league standings receive automatic bids to the following year's Players Era Men's Championship, starting with the 2026 event and running through 2030. So the next 5 tournaments, the next 5 Players Era tournaments will have, so for example, the top 8 teams in the Big 12 who finished the 2025-26 season in the top 8, all 8 of those teams will play in next year's Players Era Championship. Okay? 8 Big 12 teams out of 32. So they're going to have a huge chunk of this tournament. Half the conference will be in it. It says, for Players Era, this strategic evolution represents the next phase of expansion as it establishes a new operating framework in college basketball. It says the Big 12 Conference, this is a quote from the CEO of Players Era. It says, the Big 12 Conference continues to lead collegiate athletics movement into a new landscape, and we are incredibly proud to enter into this partnership. The conference has been instrumental to our growth from day one. The Big 12 now receives guaranteed access to the biggest college basketball event outside of March, and it will benefit perennial powers and teams with national championship aspirations. Over the next 6 years, Players Era will commit to no less than $50 million to Big 12 basketball programs in rights fees, end quote. Again, that's from Seth Berger, the CEO of Players Era. So $50 million to Big 12 basketball programs over the course of the next 6 years. Do the math. Comes out to about $1 million for every team that plays in that tournament. That's a big deal. That's $1 million they can give their student athletes for NIL or whatever. And maybe that's straight. There's no details on how that's distributed, what it goes to. It may be all NIL related. It doesn't matter. Point being, it's a lot of money for these Big 12 programs. So it will benefit the Big 12 for every team that gets in that tournament. A big deal financially, and also, again, exposure for those teams. The CEO of Everwonder, who owns Players Era, had this to say. Credit to the Big 12 leadership for taking such a forward-thinking approach that prioritizes creating new and exciting opportunities for the teams and players in their league, reflecting our shared vision for a future of college sports, said Ian Orphus, CEO of Everwonder. The Big 12 is one of the country's premier men's college basketball conferences, he goes on to say, and we are thrilled to have their top teams locked in for our event every year as we continue to build our November championships that celebrate the best players and teams in the country and creates a must-see event for college basketball fans, end quote. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, well, what does Brett Yormark have to say about this? I'm going to tell you right now. He says, the Big 12 Conference is thrilled to grow its partnership with Players Era. The tournament is a tremendous platform to showcase our conference, student athletes, and coaches as the best in college basketball, and we look forward to continuing to make Players Era a national marquee event, end quote. It says Players Era in the Big 12 have already established a pipeline of marquee teams competing in the Players Era Men's Championship. Talks about Houston played in it last year en route to a Final Four appearance and being national runner-up. This year they're in it again, along with Kansas, Iowa State, and Baylor in an expanded 18-team field. So anyway, and again, I think I'm pretty confident that I read another article that said they're expanding to 32 teams next year and beyond. So, it didn't mention that here necessarily, but that's my understanding of how this works. But if I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments. But I think, again, if you got an opportunity to play in this tournament, you're a Big 12 team, it's an extra approximately at least $1 million for your team or your student athletes or however you want to slice it up. That's a big deal in this day and time where you're trying to scrounge for revenue. And that might be, let's look at the entire picture of an athletic department. If you're West Virginia and your basketball team gets that money for playing in that tournament, maybe that's $1 million less dollars. That's another $1 million you can put somewhere else towards football or towards baseball or towards women's basketball or whatever, your Olympic sports, whatever. This is so advantageous to these teams, these programs, these athletic departments. Now, I don't know if the $50 million is only going, I'm assuming it's going to go to only the schools who participate in it. I don't know for sure. It could just be given to the conference and they distribute it out. I don't know. It did not go into detail there. But any way you slice it, this is beneficial to the Big 12 and just another example of the good job Brett Yormark is doing in getting the Big 12 to the forefront when it comes to outside-the-box deals like this. Now, are they ever going to catch the Big 10 and SEC? Likely not. But things like this will definitely help close that gap. These types of outside-the-box deals. So kudos to Brett Yormark. Kudos to the Big 12 for being at the forefront of this and getting this deal done. It would be awesome if they can do the same thing in football with bowls. A lot of the bowl contracts will be up, is my understanding, at the end of this season. Can the Big 12 get themselves outside of the CFP bowls, obviously? How many of these big marquee New Year's Six bowls outside of the CFP can the Big 12 affiliate themselves with going forward? That's going to be huge because those bowls will still bring in a lot of viewership and will be worth a lot of money to these TV networks and these bowl partners. So they did it in basketball now with this Players Era Championship. Can they do the same in football with these bowls? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So I want to give a quick shout out to our other sponsor here at the channel, Appalachia Digital. They are the folks who designed our website over at wvsportschat.com. It's where you can find written content on the Mountaineers by myself, Jonathan Martin, and others. We cover basketball, football, women's basketball, a lot of baseball coverage. We cover the gamut over there of your major sports at wvsportschat.com. That site was designed by our friends over at Appalachia Digital. They did a great job on that site. If you want them to design your site, they can do it. Go to appalachiadigital.com/coos. That lets them know I sent you. Or if you already have a site for your small business, for your blog, or whatever it is you're doing, they can help you level up your site or help you get found easier on Google. Again, go check them out at appalachiadigital.com/coos today.